I graduated from KU in 1974, but in 1975 I was still hanging out in Lawrence because I sure love, well, this talks about God loving us. Our problem sometimes is we love the wrong things. I love beer, marijuana, and cigarettes. But they were a chain to me. First time I smoked a cigarette wasn't bad. It was like a little piece of nylon or something. But the more I got into those habits, the worse they got. They became like chains. And in 1975, I was enchained by drugs, alcohol, bad habits, all kinds of things. And I gave my life to Jesus Christ. That's how I came to Christ. I tried everything else. I had a sociology major and a philosophy major. I studied all kinds of foreign religions and stuff, and they were all empty. Jesus set me free from bondage. And tonight in that scripture, when you go on down in 107, it talks about some sat in darkness and utter darkness, prisoners suffering in iron chains because they rebelled against God's command and despised the plans of the Most High. I grew up in the church. My mom would send me to church, but there was a time when I realized I had to make a choice for Jesus. And I wasn't going to for a while. So I studied all these other things to rationalize whatever I wanted to do. And it was stupid and ignorant, and then I found Jesus, the change for broken. That's the story of my salvation. I asked him into my life, and that was 1975. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had 4 years of the GI Bill. I'd been in the Navy, and I drank through the Navy. I drank through high school. And went overseas, drank over there. And after I gave my life to Christ, I thought, what am I going to do with my life? And then I had 1 more year of the GI Bill, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I went and worked at Larned State Hospital. Thought maybe I could go into psychology, sociology, something. I got accepted to law school. And then I got accepted into ministry, and I realized I went to church in Great Bend, and they were talking about Paul. I had no idea who Paul was. Paul was a stranger to me, and I realized I knew nothing about my faith. So I went to seminary in Kansas City, went 3 years there. After the first year, 2 things happened. One, I met my wife, Joan. She's a light of my life, a blessing that has been with me through all these years, ups and downs. And the other one was they offered me to work in a church in Oric, Missouri. So for 2 years I served in Oric, Missouri, and then I graduated from seminary, and I got sent to Ashland, Kansas. I was there for 5 years. But the thing about Ashland was, when I first went there, Ashland had the second highest personal income in the state of Kansas. Johnson County was first, Ashland was second because of the cattle, the oil, all the other things, the crops and everything. Farmers mostly were out there. But I grew up in a working class church. And so they said, where would you like to go? And I said, I'd rather go to some working class church. So they sent me here. Here's where people were workers here in town, and I felt really at home here. And I was so blessed when I came here. I don't know if Sue Utterback's still here tonight, but there she is. I remember her and Sandy, the first night we were in town, there was that great big sirloin stockade cow in our driveway welcoming us here. And just so delightful to have that. I mean, I couldn't sleep that night because I'd have to go over and look out the window and just go sleep. But and so many things. I remember a birthday party she planned for me. She made me put on a welding apron and set me down at the table and had me light these candles. And it was like welding rods or something. They just went off like firecrackers. And I was glad I had that welding rod on and the mask too. So a delightful church here. And I feel so blessed and humbled as I hear about this history of this church through the years. It's just amazing to me what God has done through the people that are so willing to work so hard and so long. How long have you been up today? You haven't been sleeping. You said it. But we just...
yeah, it's so late tonight, us.
It is, so I'm going to hurry. Had so many memories here, but so many others have shared some of them. I've been able to share a few of them tonight. But they asked, one of the questions is, where else? I was at Oric, Missouri, and then we went to Ashland, Kansas before we came here. After we left here, I really thought I wanted to go in, when I went to ministry first, I thought I was going to go in chaplaincy. So I took a year off and we worked with the Mennonite housing in Wichita after we left the church here. And And then I decided that, well, I'd take another church. We went to Benton, Kansas. We were there for 5 years. And after 5 years there, they asked me again what would I do. Benton was a nice church, but they had all these professionals. They had all these people who were building airplanes and all kinds of engineers and people working in Boyd. And I said, I'd like to be somewhere where there's more ministry, or where I could be involved with more in the lives of the people. And so they sent me to 10th Avenue Church in Hutchinson, Kansas. And it was an older church that was kind of in a declining neighborhood. But it was a true blessing. We were there for 13 years. Really loved being there. The problem with the ministry there was, though, had so many funerals. And that's one of the things that I remember here, just as I looked at the history, and even seeing some of the people on the video today, so many of those that I buried. But, that's the hope that we have, that as they work and serve in this world, that we're all here for a limited time. As I'm getting older, it's so much easier for me to realize that I left my cane in the car, so I didn't quite look here. I put my hearing aid back in my pocket just a little bit ago. But I won't tell you about my open heart surgery or a few other things. And brothers I've lost to cancer. But the reality is that, well, Jesus loves us, and that's what it does say there. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His love endures forever. Our problem is, our love doesn't endure forever. Our love, or if it's enduring, we're loving the wrong things. Love that beer. I was pretty good drinking beer. You've heard that song maybe. But it was empty. But when I found Jesus and found a way to serve Him here in Ashland, and then after I retired from here, or after I retired from Hutchinson, we went up to the lake. Joan got a job teaching in Meriden, Kansas, and I went into town, and I got tired of driving from Lake Perry into Topeka, and a friend of mine said, well, I got a driving job you can do. So I started a driving company taking Medicaid people to appointments. And the blessing of that was that so many of them were kind of at the end of the road. Once you're on Medicare, a lot of people, Medicaid, not Medicare, Medicaid, that means they didn't have a lot of other options. A lot of them, when I take them to an appointment, they're just real quiet because they was going to see a doctor about something pretty serious and a lot of other things. But after they were there and they realized I was dependable enough to get them there on time and everything, on the way back they just opened up, share with me what was really going on in their lives. And I'd share with them what had gone on in my life, just the hope that I found in Jesus Christ and the love of people that know the Lord. And that's what I've experienced in this church. Every church I've been in, it's just people that love the Lord. Still struggling, there's no easy way, but God is so good. And He loves us all the time. We may get off track and love the wrong things and love ourselves too much and Him too little, but His love endures forever. One version of that says His mercy endures forever. And His grace, great. I can hardly begin to speak about His grace, so we're going to sing about it here in a minute, about amazing grace of God. The guy that was blind, that was me before Jesus. I couldn't see the light before me. I couldn't see the path that I should be walking on. But with Jesus, I found my way, my life. And now, although I realize now more than ever how mortal we are, the good news is that we're not. Our bodies are. But our souls are eternal. And He has a path and a choice for each one of us. When we choose Him, we can follow Him forever and ever. Asked about my family. When we were here in 1980, in 1883, Matthew, our oldest, was born. He was born in Ashland, and Sarah was born there, so they came with us here. And then when we were here, our youngest Nathan was born. I saw him on one of the pictures up there a little while ago. And right now, Matthew's living in Wichita, where we're living now. Nathan is living in Hutchinson. And Sarah is living outside of Heston. They just moved out to a farm. It was built in 1902, and it takes a lot of work. And boy, it wore me out one day over there, just helping them with a few things. And then Joan wanted a floor put in her house, and so I told her I'd take the old one out. I put it tearing things up, but put it back together something else. So I had a professional come in and do that. But our daughter lives in Heston. She's got 2 daughters. They're 3 years old and 1 year old. And they're just the love of our life. That's one reason we moved back to Wichita, to be close to our grandchildren. And see, what were the other questions here? Matthew's working at a hotel in Wichita, and now I'll go back to the scripture. I said that how we're sitting in the darkness. So he, in verse 12 of that same verse, it says, so he subjected them to bitter labor. I had a job I didn't like, didn't make sense to me. They stumbled, and there was no one to help. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble. He saved them from their distress. He brought them out of darkness, the utter darkness, and broke their chains. But he not only breaks our chains, you know, I was always worried about getting in heaven. I really believed kind of that I was the last Christian. I thought everybody else, when I started going to church, everybody else already knew Jesus. I felt like I was the very last one. And then I thought, if I make one more sin, he's got his finger over my head like that out of a cloud, and if I goofed up one more time, that was the end of it. And that's when I discovered grace. Because I goofed up a lot of times since then. I was in darkness again. But his grace has shown me. One of her favorite books is called Grace Walk. And that's a book that's what we're trying to do now, is just walk with God in his grace and his mercy and his love, and sharing that love with whoever we can, wherever we go, for the glory of God. Well, it took a whole lot longer, a lot of memories I have here. The winters of Mrs. Miller, Christina Kresge, and somebody mentioned Wanda Strange. She was like a grandma to us too, with her kids. So blessed. We just found out today that Marcia passed away, and so much. But our hope is in the Lord, who made the heavens and the earth. You know, he can cause an eclipse to happen here on earth. It's a little planet out in the middle of nowhere. And the universe is so vast. But he has a plan for all of us. And he calls us to be with him forever and ever. Because what happens? His love endures forever. Ours will fall short. We'll love the wrong things. We'll see things selfishly. But his love endures forever. And he gives us a choice to participate in his love forever through the amazing grace of God. Mike, I guess now you can just go ahead. We're going to sing a couple verses of Amazing Grace as we're dismissed.
Give us a few minutes, a couple minutes here. Talk a little longer.
Thank you.